Hello and welcome back to the Well Embroidered Studio. My name is Sarah and I'm your embroidery tutor. I thought it'd be a lovely idea today to look at how to tie back plunged ends. Now I'm talking Goldwork here, and in the last video we looked at how to plunge gold ends neatly, specifically passing. I use the number 6 passing for my demonstrations. And we looked at how to get a lovely, neat, crisp edge, a straight edge, a curved edge, and plunging internally. So if you want to go check out that video, I'll put a link for that down in the description below. So once you have plunged your ends, the next step is to tie them back. So I thought in this video we'll look at how to tie them back neatly, and I'll share some little hints and tips to help, because it's not the easiest technique. It can be a little fiddly and a little tricky, but it's very important because you don't want your threads pulling through on the front. So that's what we're going to look at today. Let's get started. So this is an image of my Goldwork pineapple that you can see. All the ends have been plunged through the velvet, and then if we flip it over to the reverse, you can see what it looks like on the back. So all the ends have been then tied back behind the area that they were stitched on the front, nice and neat, in pairs if I can. If not, I've stitched them back in threes. Lots of stitches to hold them nice and secure. So that's kind of what we're aiming for in terms of what it should look like when you've tied back your ends. So this is the little section I'm going to demonstrate on today. It's obviously not a large section, but just enough to show you how to work the basic technique. To tie them back, we're going to use a double waxed Gutterman's. I'm using a purple colour this time, so you can see it against the red of the stitching and against the gold. You would usually use your Gutterman's 415. We are also going to be using a curved needle as well. Now you can get different thickness curved needles, so I would use what you prefer. I prefer using a finer curved needle like a beading. However, some people do find that they snap their curved needles if they are using finer ones. So it depends on your personal choice as to the thickness of it. I prefer a finer curved needle like this. The thread we're using is waxed as well. And for this, we are going to start on the left-hand side of our design. If you're right-handed, start on the left-hand side like I am. If you are left-handed, you'll probably find it easier to start on the right-hand side. I've just got a little knot at the end of my thread, and I'm just going to come underneath and catch a few of the stitches, a little bit of the fabric, just to secure this thread. Now we can cut this knot away if you want to. I generally tend to leave the knot there, just as a bit of extra security. But we want to make sure that where we start our stitching, we are right down at the base of our gold. Now using this curved needle is not easy, just to warn you. So as we stitch them on the front, we stitch them down in pairs. We are also going to tie them back in pairs. So we want to make sure that we get our first two, and that is these two here. With these other ones, what we can do is tape them out of the way just with a little bit of Scotch tape or low tack tape. And then that keeps them out of the way then. And then I need another stitch just to the point to get in a little bit closer. Now obviously with my stitching, I'm trying to just catch the calico fabric or a little bit of the linen on front. I'm not worrying too much, but I don't want these stitches on the back here to become visible on the front. So make sure you're not grabbing too much of the fabric. So I'm going to start right at the base of my plunging. I'm going to oversew the threads to the fabric. It is important that our threads are laying in the direction that they are sitting on the front. So obviously this row of stitching here is in this direction. We want it to sit directly behind the same threads on the front. It's important for two reasons. So by pulling it this way, we're helping maintain tension up on here so that our front threads don't lift. And two, if we were to go off over to the side here, when you come to mount your piece, you end up with the problem of there being a lump on the front because you're not sitting behind the gold. So there's two reasons why we want our oversewing of our gold threads to be directly behind. And you'll notice that I'm coming up on the right hand side and down on the left hand side, and I'm angling my needle just a little bit. And that's going to make it a little bit easier to take the needle in and out. You can see the angle there. And this is especially important when we come to do our next rows. Now we want to cover up as much of this gold as we possibly can. And I'm also pulling nice and tight with this hand here, pulling against the gold. And that's helping it stay tight on the front. We've got a little gap there between my stitches, sorry, so not ideal. I'll just make sure I put in a couple more stitches along here. We want to keep these stitches as close together as we can and nice and firm. We're going to go along for about 1/2 centimetre so that everything is nice and secure. So that will probably be enough there. That's nice and secure. And if I pull on that there, you can see at the base here it's not moving anywhere, which is what we want. We can then come in and snip our gold threads just like that. And we don't need to finish off this purple thread. We can bring it up to the base so we can work our next two. Now it's important that these are stitched down in pairs. I've seen people stitch them down in like groups of 4 or 6 or 8 just to sort of speed up the process. However, that means that your gold threads aren't necessarily being secured well enough. So do where you can, always try and stitch them down in pairs. Now, some gaps you will have will be very, very tight and it will be difficult to fit in just the two together. So in that case there, I would say you could add in a third and stitch it down in 3s, but wherever you can, do stitch them down in pairs because it will give you the most securest finish. So again, just lifting up my thread there so I can see where I'm going. And needle comes down on the outside edge and it comes up in between the new row and the previous row. And again, you saw me take my needle down at a nice angle, and it's that angle that makes it easier to pull the needle out. Now, if this is your first time using a curved needle, it is quite tricky to get used to it. And you need to sort of find the best position, the most comfortable position for you. It is a bit time consuming, this, and I know you're not going to see it, but it's worth doing the best job you can because it will in fact affect your finished result on the front. You've probably got a little bit of a bigger gap there than I would like. Could always come in and add a stitch if I wanted to. There, like that. So there's our second one. And you're going to continue working them until you have everything stitched down. Now, you want to make sure that this first one is right up against the very edge because it can be very easy for them to get a little bit further apart from each other each time. And then by the time you end up on the last one on this side here, you haven't got any space for it to go, so it can end up sort of sticking out over here if you're not careful. So do just be aware and make sure that the threads are butted up as close to your left hand side, or the side that you start from, as you possibly can. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little instructional video on how to tie back the ends. If you're interested in learning more Goldwork, and why wouldn't you be, because it's absolutely fabulous, it's my favourite technique, then I have created a course, Deep Dive into Goldwork. I actually created it several years ago as a live online class. It was so popular that I've brought it back so that I can help more people, but this time it's going to be a self-paced class. We dive into over 30 different Goldwork techniques, and I share as many hints and tips as I can with you guys. And we go into the why we do things as well, because I think that can really help people learn. So if you're interested, it launches at the end of this month, end of October, and those on the waitlist get a 10% discount. I'll pop a link below in the description box, so if you want to check it out, you can do. That's it for me this week. Happy stitching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.